Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. I am Julie Riley, the social media manager here at StreamYard, and I am so excited to welcome you to another episode of Live Stream Impact. Remember, if you are watching in the Facebook group, the StreamYard community, you need to click on the link in the description to give StreamYard permission to see your name. Otherwise, I just see Facebook user, and I cannot say hello to Facebook user. I want to know who you are. Make sure you share that with me. I see that we've got Inman and Mike and Going Green Mom. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Let me know where you are watching from and what are you working on this week. It's Monday. It's a brand new week. It's the week before a holiday. If you are here in the US, sometimes that means a lot of extra work to prepare for that. So what do you have planned? What's going on in your week? With that, we have a couple things I want to make sure I share with you. We have a couple of new shows. If you haven't checked out Ask StreamYard yet, that show is every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And this is where we're taking one of your questions that you've had, things that we hear frequently, and we're really going in and giving a deep dive answer on getting that information for you. And then the first and third Tuesday of every month, only in the Facebook group, the StreamYard community, we have office hours now. Our office hours are with myself and my co-host Melanie, and we are doing your live Q&A of questions you have about StreamYard or questions you have about live streaming in general, so we can help you level up. And really, that's what we want to do. We want to improve your streams and make you better out there, whether it's streaming, podcasting, content creating, whatever it is that you're doing with StreamYard, we want to help you improve and help you level up. I am so excited for today's guest. It is a longtime friend of mine, somebody I've had the privilege to work with over the years. Very, very happy to have Erik with us. Erik Fisher has been working in social media for over 10 years as a community manager and a social media manager with roles in higher education, social media examiner, and Agorapulse. He's also the producer and the host of the long-running Beyond the To-Do List podcast for almost 10 years. That is amazing, Erik. 10 years.
Yeah.
Welcome. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me. It is my honor to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about you. I mean, 10 years is a long time for a podcast. How did you get started in it?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Well, let me put it this way. At one point, I was a data entry person sitting in a cubicle. So you too can make it to content creator status. I was sitting there in my little Dell workspace, and iTunes pops up with a little, hey, there's an update. And I thought, okay, sure. Coffee break time. I hit go. I go grab my coffee, come back, sit down, and I see this little thing there. It says podcasts in the sidebar. And I'm like, what is that? And I click through and I start diving into this world of, oh my gosh, you mean I can sit here and listen to radio shows and pause them so I don't miss anything while I'm sitting here doing my data entry in my email? And I've been hooked ever since. That was the summer of 2005. And so a couple years later, friend of mine and I, and you don't know this, I don't think, a couple years later, 2007, December, my friend and I were one of the top 10 new comedy podcasts in iTunes.
I did not know that.
So this was just the thing. We would drive to, he worked in the same office as me. We'd drive to his house, to a spare bedroom. We had stuff set up to record, and we'd knock out a quick half-hour-ish, just weird show, and then eat lunch, and then head back to day job. And that was what we kind of did all summer and into the fall. And so it's a defunct show now, but that got me. It was like, okay, we can definitely do this. It was getting your feet wet. And then slowly inched my way into recording Social Media Serenity, a podcast about doing social media without going crazy. That was co-hosted. I co-hosted that with Cliff Ravenscraft. That was kind of what got me into the sphere of Social Media Examiner, Mike Stelzner, and then and then doing social media at the university where it was my alma mater at Indiana Wesleyan University. Okay. And they created the position for me because I was dabbling in social media in my cubicle and podcasting at the same time. And they come to me and they say, hey, we need somebody to do what you're doing for your podcasting for the university. Can we have you start researching what would that look like? And so I say, sure. And within about a year and a half, they create a position. And I'm the very first social media manager at that university. Did it for about 3 years and then moved over on into Social Media Examiner and then did that for 5+ years or so. And then pretty recently was doing stuff with Agora Pulse now too. So, and then through all of that, somewhere in there started the Productivity Show 2012. In 2012, summer 2012, and Beyond the To-Do List was born. So
that's awesome. I love that. And I love hearing like people's backstories of getting into social media. Those of us who were really at that groundbreaking time of it, because I was the same, where social media management didn't exist when I started. It was in my position of starting it. I was one of the first with the company that I was with. And so the same kind of thing where they're like, we need this. We've got to create a position for this. And that's how it kind of rolled into it because, it wasn't like it was a college course when we went to college.
Right.
That didn't exist. Okay. So with that, with your podcasting, you've also been a face of live video for a number of years. And then incorporating the two together of doing the live video to create the podcast. What have you learned through that?
Yeah, well, I learned that you want to start as soon as you can, because one of the things that I didn't mention in all of that was as I was leaving college, I was finishing up and I was doing a lot of editing through iMovie and things like that back when it was still pretty early. And I realized that I was like, oh, I just kind of missed the mark. I was just too early. Like I didn't have, even at that time, I didn't have a concept that podcasting was going to be a thing. And I didn't know that YouTuber was going to be a job description, right? So had I known that though, I would have been preparing for that all along. And the great thing is that, and again, the bandwidth wasn't there in terms of speeds and things like that, in terms of being able to, I mean, remember when podcasting first came out, you had to download it into iTunes first, connect an iPod via the 30-pin cable, then move things over, and then you could disconnect it and take it with you and play it. And it was only when Wi-Fi signals and speeds and things became, ubiquitous enough that you could just either stream it or download it to your mobile device. So,
I remember the early days of the iPod Touch.
Yes.
And getting your podcast on the go with you, because at home you could connect to Wi-Fi with it before you really even had, because the iPod Touch was the precursor to the iPhone. And that was my way of taking it with me on the go.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I would say that there's such a connection between, and again, that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're for all intents and purposes, this is a podcast. If it was out there to be subscribed to and automatically downloaded and all those good kind of, definitions of what podcasting is, which is changing. The definition is definitely changing, but because you're recording media, I like to, I really, 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 this is a stickler thing of mine. I really hate using the word content sometimes because it's so dehumanizing. It's not, it's content. It's sterile. In other words, it's not because sometimes this stuff, a lot of the time, in fact, even when it's marketing material, this is not content. It's art. It's us being creative. It's us making media. Exactly. So I try to use the word media to replace the word content as often as I can get my brain to attach that and replace it. So
I love that. And really, and that's what I want with this show is, I have questions and a thought process put together for this. But for me, this is a conversation. This is a flow, and a conversation is not a read from a script, have it in a box. It's not, it's planned, but it's not so molded and stuck into place that we can't move with the flow and just have that conversation flow together.
Yeah. Well, and that, to be honest, that's kind of my rule and kind of the disclaimer I give every guest for my show is when they come on, I say, okay, first up, you need to know, if you've never listened to the show, that this is not an interview. This is a conversation. And this is, I give them the example. I say, even up until recently, when we couldn't be in coffee shops, I would say, this is you and me sitting at a coffee shop and the listener is sitting at the next table over, listening in to us just talking. And so that is the vibe I want you to go with. This is there. I don't have prepared questions. I have topics, and I definitely line those up in kind of a natural conversation flow that I think is going to be the path, but I will divert from that path and then come back round to it again. And it's a conversation. I want to in other words, I don't come in with a list of questions. I come in thinking, oh my gosh, if I only ever get to talk to you one time, here's the list of things I want to make sure I at least ask you about real quick, as if you're my favorite celebrity or something.
Love that you bring that up, because I think that's something that we have a lot of people that fear or struggle with when they're first learning to go live. Is they're like, I looking at the camera and getting in front of the camera, and they get very nervous. And it's that remembering this is just a conversation, and there's just some other people that happen to be listening to it. And that's all it is. And that takes that fear of I'm behind a camera, and there might be 5 people watching, there might be thousands of people watching, and I don't know what to do with that. You get that stigma and that paralyzation, that stage fright. And so just knowing it's a conversation helps ease that so much.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I kind of tell them is I edit the show, and that means that there's a safety net. But that also applies to live video and streaming as well, is that the audience is forgiving. Oh, yeah. So they're maybe a little less forgiving when it comes to listening to audio on the go. I think that's at least, or that's, let me put it that way. That's my preference. I'm like, if you just stumbled all over yourself, I'm listening as a podcast thinking, why didn't you edit that out? With streaming video, I'm way more forgiving, because it's like, oh no, warts and all. It's fun. It's cool. It's flowing. It's riffing, whereas you took the time to format that audio file and then put it out. That's a different story.
Right. And that should have a little bit of a cleanup. I wouldn't download my file here from StreamYard at the end of this show and just upload it to a podcast format and say, Olay, we're good. I would go and clean that up and piece it together. But I think that's something to think about, is when the difference between your live video and your finalized podcast product. See, we would clean that up. We would not throw that out there into the podcast. With that, let's talk a little bit about your podcast flow and kind of give some people some insight on how this can go beyond the podcast creator, but the StreamYard, the live stream creator, if you're YouTube and doing an interview there, whatever it is that you're creating your media for.
Yeah, good job. Good job.
Yes. So whatever it is that you're creating for, what is your process from finding your guests to your run of show, the flow of it?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with one key piece that was a piece of advice that I gleaned from another podcaster when I first got started. And it was Daniel J. Lewis. He hosted a show called The Audacity to Podcast. And that was about the Audacity tool of recording, but also it was kind of a play on the words of I don't know if he intentionally did this or not, but The Audacity of Hope, Barack Obama's book at the time. And ultimately, there you go. See, hey, warts and all. Ultimately, he said that before he started making anything, he said, for consistency's sake, to know that I have it in me, topic-wise, something to say, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write a list of 52 possible topics and or guests, and then start to arrange those in a chronological order to where they start at the beginning and start to build upon each other as you get going. And I thought that's brilliant, because if you can list out 52 potential topics or guests before you even start to work those into a media workflow that you're going to eventually do something with, then that gets the shall we say, writer's block syndrome out of the way, where you're like, I don't know what the next show is, or I don't know who to ask next, or I don't know what to talk about next. No, if you've done that homework, if you've done that, and again, that's what we know is one of the things that is the biggest pieces of building your audience, is being consistent, showing up week over week, or if it's bi-weekly or whatever your schedule is to have something in the chamber for that next time, and that next time after, and that next time after that. I mean, there's a reason why I mean, I think the stats have risen now, but there was a reason for a long time there. Most podcasters didn't make it past episode 7, then they would stop. These days, I think it's more like 10 to 15. So that's good. That's hopeful. That's like 1/4. But yeah, that's what I would say is your first piece of homework to do. And especially especially if you're trying to come up with an idea to format a show, no matter what type of show you're doing, whether it's a co-host or you're bringing guests or you're talking topics or you're solo showing it, whatever, this is a great way to test if there is enough material to at least start off with an initial salvo into making that media that's going to have longevity to it, in other words.
I love that. And I love the thought process of really, I mean, 52 pieces of media. I'm gonna work on that. I have to pause and think about it every time. But if you were only doing a show once a week, that's a whole year's worth.
Exactly.
If you're doing it once a month, you've got a lot of content, media. It's it's gonna be.
Don't worry about it. Yes.
But it's something that it's going to get you past that 7. And I can really see how that is a thing that if you don't have that process thought ahead, you're going to end up stuck and you're going to end up going, oh my gosh, I'm out of ideas. I don't know what to do next.
The beautiful thing about what happens there is it's not just about saying, well, I've now got 52 ideas. I'm set for 52 weeks or whatever your duration is. Instead, now you've loosened the creative barriers in your mind and you start to see those as you start to the important pieces, not just listing them out, but starting to order them. And as you see the connections start to happen, and especially this is what happened to me, is as soon as I started thinking about it and I was like, oh no, you know what? I want to talk to, so I'll list off some people. I was like, I want to talk to Michael Hyatt. I want to talk to David Allen. I want to talk to, and as soon as I would say one of their names, another name would pop up or another topic would come up and it would be, oh, time management. Well, more specifically, calendaring things, or more specifically, time spent on email. How much time is too much time? Those different kinds of topics would then flow into, in other words, good ideas come from many ideas. So you've got to start with having as many ideas as you can possibly have so that then you can start to shape those into something.
That's perfect. Okay, so now you have your 52 topics and ideas. How do you move forward from there?
Yeah. So what I did, and so I mentioned 2 names specifically there because those are 2 really big milestones for me. So number 1 is Michael Hyatt. He's the head of Michael Hyatt and Company, and I've gotten to know him over the years. I knew him a little bit at the beginning of the show through a couple of mutual connections, and that was one of the other things that I then had to think of was, well, who can I get that's going to kind of be a key to unlock a door to many other people? So I thought, well, Michael Hyatt knows a lot of those other bigger name people. If I can get him and I can point to him being on it and reference that, then I'll be able to open the door for other people. And so that's exactly what I did, as I knew I could get him. And in fact, I kind of did something stupid, which was, now I'd like to brag and say, no, I knew what I was doing, but I went ahead and did it anyway. As I scheduled the call. I asked him in person when I saw him at Blog World in 2012, when I was still kind of coming up. I didn't even have the show set up yet. I just said, hey, will you be on my podcast? And he said, yes. I was like, well, now I've got to do it.
You're like, uh-oh, that's well, shoot, that was the propeller.
Yeah. And that was kind of the impetus, is like, okay, the catalyst there is like, oh, well, he said, yes, I have to follow through now. I'm going to look like an idiot. So I recorded with him first. He was not who I originally put out as my first episode, but I recorded with him first. And when it was over, he said, you did a great job. Thanks. Great questions, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, if he thought so, now I know I can do it. And it was like, okay, then I immediately started ripping through, 2, 3, 4, 5 more and started to batch process a bunch. So that was the first step. And so in that lesson, again, if you can find somebody who can unlock a door as a reference point or as a person who can introduce other potential guests, and that's one path. Another is there a big name you'd ultimately like to get, and you think, well, it's going to take me forever to get that person? So I mentioned this, David Allen. author of
Mhm.
Getting Things Done. I figure, well, I'd like to have him on. I hope I can get him. I want to get him. I better ask now so I can start to like eventually get him months and, years down the road from doing this. I email his PR people. His wife, who works for him, replies about a day later and says, David would love to do it. How about this day at this time? And I'm like, yes. I said, okay, yes, whatever. I'll make that work. Perfect. And so don't shortchange yourself.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, I was willing to fight long haul to get him eventually. He's now been on the show 4 or 5 times over the past 10 years.
That's awesome.
So crazy, right? Not what I planned as far as what I just told you story-wise. So, yeah.
And I think that's something that people get caught up in. I could never get that person. They're just too big of a name. I've always said, create that dream board, put down your dream list of names, and then start putting it out there and start letting other people know that that person's on your dream board. Start reaching out to that person, and it might happen right away and it might not. It might take a little bit longer. But if you don't start asking, I figure what Kimberly says here, jumping is what you did. And if you don't jump, you will never move forward. Mm-hmm. You've got to make that leap and you've got to make those steps. And sometimes you'll jump really far in one jump. And sometimes you might just jump a tiny bit, but you're going to be moving forward.
Yes. Yeah. So jumping, that was definitely it. So from those different kinds of stories there, I think you can see that, one, don't be afraid to ask because you might get a yes. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to get a no or a not yet. I'll tell you what, I've asked Seth Godin 2 or 3 times. It's always been not right now. He's never said flat out, no, never email me again. Mm-hmm. It's been and he's always replied. Yeah. And it's always been, I've just been been off at the timing wise. So I'm going to get him at some point. Trust me.
There you go. Okay. You've started to put your ask out there. We've talked about that you really want it to be a conversation. You don't want it to be this super scripted piece. So what is your process of putting your run of show together to create that thought and to kind of keep the flow moving?
Yeah. What's great is with the way that I do the show is I will intro the person when they're not with me. So I don't even have to think about that. That's a great thing about podcasting. Like I don't have to, kind of how you did it, where you introed me and I'm sitting here in the green room, and that's totally fine, by the way. But with that, it takes the pressure off. Like I don't have to write that intro up right now. I don't need to worry about that. That's a post-production kind of a thing. So that's one of the things I like about podcasting in some respects. I think that then it's easy to then just whatever platform we're connecting with, whether that's StreamYard or whatever, when I connect with the guest is, hey, how you doing? How what's your day been like? Like it's just connect. Mm-hmm. Its priority is connect, put them at ease, let them know, double check any tech issues because those come up. Yeah. And in fact, there's some of that when we talk about scheduling, we can talk about that if you want to. When we're scheduling a guest, is making sure they've got you've got a clear expectation from them as to, one, be in strong internet connection.
Yes.
Make sure it's the same connection that you're going to be, if we did a test, make sure it's the same position, connection, place, all those kinds of things, as of when you're going to actually literally do the recording. Use headphones because mic bleed is a thing.
Yeah. So are you wearing headphones? Because I get asked this a lot because everybody thinks I'm not quite frequently. And it turns out, we talked about this before the show, we're actually wearing the same, aren't we?
Yes, I'm not just a client. I'm I'm wearing them right now. You can see them.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, they're clear. They're called MEE. Yep. Amazon, what, $15 ish?
$15 or $16, something like that.
And they're clear. You can't tell that I'm wearing them. It looks much better than I have them sitting here. Yes.
The big over the ear clunky.
I'm not sitting here looking like this. Come on. Although this is pretty cool looking. I mean, come on, it's pretty cool looking. But at least, sitting here and to not be, to be more in the moment again, as if it's a conversation.
The one tip I will give everybody, if you do get those headphones, then get an extender because it is a short cable and you will like be stuck to the end of your microphone very awkwardly and not be able to move. I got a 3-foot extender. I know Melanie, who's my co-host on another of my shows, she has the 6-foot because she likes to dance at the beginning of her show during her countdown timer. So she needed room to move. But make sure you get an extender for those, but they're super cheap.
Yep. So let's see, what were we talking about? So we were wearing headphones. Oh, okay. So tech stuff, make sure that gets out of the way, that, you've connected, all that kind of stuff. And I give them the spiel of, this is a conversation, coffee shop, etc. Safety net. If you want to, if at some point here you feel like, oh no, I've got everybody hooked on these. Yes. But I will say Michael Hyatt showed them to me when I was on, he interviewed me for a summit of his 2015, 16 or something. And I was like, wait, are you wearing headphones? So I've been evangelizing everybody on them ever since.
I know Amazon probably gets orders just constantly for those.
Yeah, I've got a text expander snippet to just expand that into any conversation somebody needs it. But tech issues out of the way, ready to go, and then we rock and roll. And let's see, where were we going with this? Remind me.
Kind of building your pre-show before
you
get ready to go.
Yeah, so I send them a lot of that expectation stuff ahead of time. When we record, we're in the moment, we're doing that. And so remember earlier, I said I don't necessarily prepare questions. Now, that's not to say people haven't asked. I've had, probably in 10 years of podcasting, I've had 5 to 10 maybe people ask me, do you have prepared questions that I can give to the person or that I can have ahead of time so I know what to, but for the most part, people roll with it. They just want to, in other words, they know their stuff. They know what their talking points are already. And in fact, that's actually another cheat that I'll get to in a second. But if you come in, again, I don't go through somebody's book and say, now how do I formulate this into a question to ask them properly during an interview? That's all stuffy. Just, again, I come at it with the approach of, I am going to meet Bono and I only have 10 minutes. So what are the 5 things I want to say? And it's not asking him questions. It's, hey, thank you for this. This was awesome. And I'll just have a list and I'll kind of have it in through, as a conversational flow, a presumed conversational flow that I'm willing to break script for because there's no script.
Right. So. Exactly. I did have one question that I want to bring up because this is something that I am not having a co-host. I don't have a producer. I'm doing all of the comments and everything myself, which is one of the things that we love about StreamYard is that it does make it super simple. Yes, I do work for them, but I would say that even if I didn't, because it is just that easy to bring up the questions and everything. We have some shows that do have producers or have a co-host kind of doing, alternating what's going on. But Erik is just my guest today, and it's just me other than that.
Yeah.
Okay. You've gone into this conversation and you've got this plan. What do you do to kind of keep yourself coming back to the topic if you have an off the topic question and you kind of go one direction and you go, okay, is that kind of just in your show notes of like, okay, this is kind of the next topic that I want to make sure we cover. And that's what you kind of have those bullet points, or what do you have there?
Yeah, so it's kind of an outline where, this is, okay, so if I'm talking to this person, it's not just one big long list of bullets. It's more, there's 3 or 4 different sections. And I will group those things together. So I'll say, let's see. So I'm trying to give an example here, but basically, ultimately, if there's somebody that I'm talking to and there's 4 kind of main points, I'll put all the sub points together, broken down in there. So so at some point, if it's like, okay, we need to be done with this section of the conversation now, pivot to that next one. And that at least is kind of the roadmap to follow. So there isn't no structure. It's just not so it's not so heavy formatted to have like literal questions written out for the most part.
Yeah. And I've had some where I've had some literal questions written out because I wanted to make sure no matter what, I got that one asked. But for the most part, I like to just, go with that flow. I like what, we've had a couple of people say, a written rundown helps, having some keywords. That way, if the conversation kind of starts to dry up, you can pick one of those and start to talk about it. Kimberly likes to do prepared questions. I was doing those for a while, and then I was finding that when I was doing them, I was feeling too obligated to stick to them because then the guest had seen them ahead of time and the guest was expecting them. And then if you went off topic, they were like, so then I always had to do the disclaimer going, so this wasn't one of the questions I sent you, but we're going to go. And that always just got awkward. So for me, I kind of stopped with the prepared.
Yeah, I think is one of the things where if I set them up with an expectation that these are the only questions I'm going to ask, prepare to answer these questions only, then when it's time to actually have the conversation, I feel like I'm blindsiding them. And then they, and I've had it happen where they're like, oh, let me think about that for a minute. And I'm like, you should know the answer to this question. Right. It's like, now I have to edit this. So, whereas if I don't give again, what I do is I accommodate, but I don't insist on giving questions ahead of time. If somebody asks for it, sure, great. But
I love this from Jima. He said, I have found that having a great guest who is willing to share is just as important as a skilled interviewer. And I could not agree with that more. And some of that is that's who you're asking to be on your show is kind of when you're making your guest list of who you want, doing your research, going and seeing how are they on camera? How are they on a podcast? What's their flow and what do they like? And how do they go with it? Because are they someone that does get stuck or stumbles and doesn't quite make it through the show? They may not be who you want yet, or you just may need to coach them or prepare them a little better.
Yeah. And so you're actually getting near my little cheat here, which I'll just give away because it's, it doesn't matter. I like when people use it. It's that go do your research, do the homework on that person, go see what they've been on, go listen to shows they've been on. And then you get to do something cool, which is you've already heard them answer that person's questions. You then get the opportunity to double down and make an even better question to get them drilled down even deeper into that topic in a way that person that you were just listening talk to them never could. You can do it better.
That's awesome. That's a good tip. I'm gonna have to remember that one.
Yeah.
I love what Amanda said here. Or the dreaded guest who doesn't stop talking. I'm guilty. We love you, Amanda.
That's a guilty. I'm not gonna put a guilt trip on you for, Amanda. So
that's okay, because generally when Amanda doesn't stop talking, it is a slew of amazing knowledge that you want to listen to.
It's gold.
So,
yes.
Yeah. It's always Facebook ad gold. If you are in the ad industry or doing anything with Facebook ads, you need to be following Amanda Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. With that, you've kind of got the process, you've done the show. Now, in this case, we're talking specifically for podcasting. What is your post-show process then?
Yeah, so this is the dreaded part. It's like you've done the fun part. You've recorded, you've had the conversation. Now it's a matter of getting the post stuff together and putting it out there. And as much of an automated or automating your own self as you can to make a workflow up is what I suggest, because what it took me years to get to the point of doing was creating templates, like audio editing templates inside of my audio editing software, where I had my intro music and my outro music already set and a transition or two already set and saved as a template. So all I needed to do was open that up with my editing software and then import the conversation fully edited by me or somebody else. I've had other people edit for me, which if you can afford to pay somebody to do it, do it. Yes. Get through that trust process of letting somebody else handle your work, because it will free you up immensely. Trust me. So that's a long and short question answer right there. That's a whole other topic, to be honest. But yeah, if you can record your in and you're out at at a different time. And what I like to do is actually, if I've got 3 or 5 conversations all banked, they're recorded, is sit down for half hour to an hour and get all those shows ins and outs recorded just in one recording session, and to know I've got a month's worth of stuff basically almost fully ready to go out, you know.
The more you can batch, the
Yes.
simpler it will be, because you're in that mindset. You've sat down to do that process, and so just do it multiple times. Dimebag Darren wants to know, which audio editor do you use?
I have used a free one for forever. It's called Audacity, and it's for Mac. It's for Windows. It's really easy to use. It's just what I started using a long time ago, and it's just what I've stuck with. And again, I created templates for it so that I didn't ever have to pull in all the disparate pieces ever again. It was always just double click that one file, and it's ready to receive my in, my out, and my interview, and I just kind of move them a little bit here and there, and then export it out and convert it to an MP3, and I'm done. It's so much simpler, so much less time spent. Oh, I can't tell you how much time I wasted years ago on this process, and it's now so much shorter. So, and the other cool thing is you can also get into a show notes mode where you sit down and create a bunch of different shows in your, you know, whatever system it is you're using to push your show out. You know, create one, title it, kind of say, okay, drop the bio in, I'll perfect that later. And, you know, sponsors, whatever, if you have them, create all, you know, 2, 3, 4 of them all at once, and then go back in and then fix it all up. So
I love that. Now, how would somebody who's doing this process as a live streamer go about it? Would it really, for them, do you think, would it be the same? I know the answer to this, but
that is a great question. So here's the thing. If it's live, then that's one thing. You kind of have to either, if you've got if you've got like, so for example, if we wanted to, we could play a video right here inside of StreamYard and send that everywhere. If you want to do that, like, that's great. You could go and do batch process, creating those types of videos as your segues, as your whatever. So in other words, you can create that. There's a certain amount of automation that you can create in terms of bringing in your branded assets and all of the different components to a show. So those are all at the ready, whether you're using like a deck to push sound effects, all those different kinds of things. So in other words, what I'm getting at here is there's different things you can automate and or set up and leave always at the ready. And so do that. Make sure that you're not setting, you know, do your pre-flight checklist and then make sure it's the same and you can go through it quickly every single time.
Perfect. I love that. And that's exactly, it's creating that system. And the more you can create that system, the better off you're going to be, because you don't want to recreate that wheel every single time and go, okay, so I've got to get my cover photo and I've got to get my title. And you kind of just, you almost, your pre-flight checklist.
Yep. And write it down, because here's the thing. You may think you know it, but that's where sloppy random mistakes happen. You may know it. You really might, but it's in the last hectic moment of something where you're trying to rush through or get something done. And because you're not just checking it off, you know, you're having to consciously think about remembering it versus passively just following a list that's already there and taking up much less energy, effort, etc.
What I like to do with that list, for me, because I am a list person, is have it in a protective sleeve and then use a dry erase pen and check, check, check. And at the end of that show, it can be erased and it's ready to go for the next one. And that way I'm not reprinting it every time or trying to follow along my list and still make sure I don't skip one. That's just how my brain operates a little bit better and keeps me on track.
That's great. And if you have like a digital version of that, like on an iPad and an Apple Pencil or something, that you can, you know, create a duplicate copy every single time, and then you're good to go.
This is a great question here. What is the process of live streaming and podcasting at the same time through StreamYard, if that's possible? So I guess that would be, you're asking, doing a live podcast almost.
Yeah, it's totally possible. I mean, here's the thing. Depending upon what plan you're on, you're recording the video no matter what. And you can strip that out afterwards. You can strip the audio out of that and then edit that separately if you want to, or leave it. You don't have to. I suggest editing, but you've got the video recorded. You can pull the audio out for that. What I would suggest is having, for example, Julie and I right now both would record ourselves locally to get the best audio quality possible. That's not going through the internet first.
Mhm.
That's something to consider. This is kind of just, StreamYard would then just be the facilitator of that. However, there's also the version where you get the WAV files, separate tracked WAV files recorded through StreamYard as well, that you can then download afterwards. And so same instance. It's recording both locally, just cloud-based. There's a lot of things to consider there, though. When you're recording something as live video and as a podcast at the same time. Like, for example, if we were screen sharing something here, like, we would need to be very intentional about describing what it is we're showing or wanting to tell, so that the audio listener doesn't miss out on anything.
I actually was a podcast guest a while back where part of that podcast recording, because it was a live podcast recording, was that she wanted me to do a demo of StreamYard. And what we ended up doing in it was, when we got through the podcast recording, she actually just added an edited part that said, in the description of this podcast, go watch the video, because you're not going to understand what's happening, because it's a walkthrough that you're going to hear it and be very confused. You need to actually stop the podcast recording now and go watch the video.
Yes. Yeah. And so that would be the instance of, say you streamed this right now. So right now we are on YouTube.
Mhm.
Okay. Because I watched you and my friend Jeff on my TV last week when you were doing this.
Yes.
And so you take that embed of the YouTube and put that in the show notes of your podcast, and you can even have it play to start at a certain marker there in the embed to jump, or you can give the time code for them to jump ahead. Hey, for the example of StreamYard, jump to this point in the video. You can do that. So, but it's tying all the pieces together, in other words, in one complete media package, if you will.
Yeah. We kind of talked a little bit, and I know you said you would get started sooner. It is one of the things you really would like to go back and do. What have you learned through this process, through the last 10 years of building up your live shows and your podcasts and creating all of this media that's out there? What have you been able to take with that and grow from that?
Well, it's definitely not overnight. Again,
Yep.
I will say this. Let's see. So if I started,
if you build it, they will come.
They will. Just, it takes a long time for them to come.
Yes.
So disclaimer. I'll say that I didn't really make any serious money monetizing any of this until about 5 years plus into it. Now, I wasn't actively, like, I that was at about the 2017-18 mark. But I will say this: 2017 to 18 and 2018 to 19, like, it doubled year over year there for a while, and has increased now more so. And then there's more people getting into it, or more money getting into the mix, I should say. So the creator economy, when it comes to the different ways that you're able to monetize, continues to grow, because things, continue to fragment in terms of not just attention, but places you can go to spend that attention.
Yes.
I will say this: one of the things that I will do, like I mentioned, I watch YouTube on my TV often. Instead of flipping around trying to figure out what it is I want to watch on all those other apps, I open up YouTube first, and most of the time it's things I'm subscribed to, channels I'm subscribed to. So
I've said on this show before that probably 90% of what's played on my television is YouTube. We don't even have television, but we have, Netflix and some of the other things out there. But the first thing my husband does when he walks through the door is he turns on YouTube. So yeah.
What I've learned is that you are better than you think you are. 2, you can get a lot better with even just a little bit of public practice and feedback. And there's no reason to think you shouldn't start something that somebody else is, quote, already doing, because they don't have your perspective, your voice, your way of connecting the dots. And somebody else will connect with you doing that show versus them doing that same show that you're afraid to do because your own version of. So
I love that. I hear all the time that exact thing is, well, that show already is done, or that person's already doing it. And you're going to have a different take. You are a different human. You are not a clone of that person. So that show doesn't already exist.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you would just be a clone. And we know you're not.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing about podcasting? What do you love about podcasting that keeps you doing it year after year?
I think the favorite thing for me is how, even with shows that I've never met the host in person, though often it happens, I feel like I know them. I feel like, because I'm, one, spending so much time consistently with them, but two, so much time consistently with them in my ears as I'm doing other things. It's like there is a consistent, ongoing relationship with them. Same thing happened. I mean, I can tell you, I've been at podcasting conferences and people will walk around and they'll suddenly, either I'll see them have it happen to them, or it'll happen to me where someone will say, "Oh my gosh, are you so-and-so? I just heard your voice and had to walk over here," because they knew your voice, but not your face. And that's, and so that's one of the bonuses, though, of live video and streaming, is that, again, you can see the face, you can read the not only the inflection of my voice, but the contortion of my face as well, for the facial expressions.
Well, and I've seen that exact same thing happen to you at Social Media Marketing World, where people have come up and been like, I feel like I know you.
Yes.
Because you were a face for so long with a show that everybody had created a comfort level with you, and almost felt like they were your friend. You had been in their living room every week, in their office, or in their ear, however, for many, many years. And I've personally seen it happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of, it's an unexpected, I'll say, perk, but yeah, it's really interesting. So I think that's the thing for me. That's the favorite part for me, is just the connection ability that there is in when using this technology. I really love that.
I love it. We touched a teeny smidge on some tech and kind of making sure that your guests were prepared for tech. What about the person getting started? I mean, we all have, we had somebody ask earlier about cameras in the comments, nicer cameras or microphones or the audio, but do they have to have all of that to get started, especially with a podcast, because a podcast is strictly audio? What do they need to really get this going?
I would say, I mean, there are, when it comes to a podcast, yes, you probably want to have a decent enough microphone. Luckily for you, the lowest barrier to entry threshold of a mic is probably about $60, maybe 99, somewhere in that range. I can suggest, like, the ATR 2100 is simple, easy one to get. There's a couple other different versions of that out there that you can get. That I got that one for about $60 at one point. There was a point where it was like 35 on sale at Amazon. Of course, the pandemic has made things a lot more scarce to get, in terms of all of the gear. So that's something to keep in mind right now. But even a Yeti, I mean, again, some podcasters would be like, I can't believe you said that. How dare you suggest? No, dude, come on.
Yeah. I used a Yeti for years, probably about 5 years. And I only upgraded in February to the Shure MV7.
See, that's another good one.
Yeah. And that one's not super expensive. It was $250.
Yeah.
It was not I didn't go out and spend $1,000 on a microphone.
No. And again, I mean, I'm using one here that I've had for years now, and it works just fine. If you invest in it, and then it's gonna, again, I keep it up off the desk. It's got the boom arm and everything, so that it's, up out of the way. But yeah, you wanna make sure that you invest as you're comfortable, and invest as you can without feeling like you have to.
Right.
Especially with streaming video, audio is a good component, but maybe go for the camera for, like, I right now, and this is something that's way overdue, but I'm using the Logitech Brio, so it can do 4K-ish, but it's not the greatest of sensors. So That's definitely that's probably the next thing that I will do is use something like that.
Yeah. And that was my upgrade in the fall, was finally from the Logitech C920 up to the Sony A6000. But again, I had been using the Logitech for probably, well, I mean, I've been live streaming since 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and only this past November actually upgraded to a DSLR camera beyond either my cell phone, my webcam on my laptop, or the Logitech C920. Those were the cameras I had been using for the past 6 years.
Yeah. Well, and that's something to actually keep in mind is the cell phones in and of themselves, these smartphones have much more much more compact and comprehensive hardware in them and software for that matter to augment the limitations of hardware. I mean, you can do like I think I don't have it sitting here, but if I'm not mistaken, I could hook up via lightning cable my iPhone 12 and have the front facing camera on me right now and swap the camera out, and it would actually look better than this does.
Yeah.
And so take advantage of that. Use your cell phone or invest in just a mobile rig of some sort.
And we
Use that.
actually have a Learn with StreamYard episode that was specifically about a program called Camo. That Camo is designed to turn your phone into a webcam that then can become a webcam interface into StreamYard as a virtual cam, and works amazingly through that program. So that was one of ours that we were really excited to bring that guest on for that program.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So see, there you go. Like already you're using a piece of technology that you probably already own that would do better than waiting on a waiting list through Amazon to get that webcam. And then you just use some sort of like, what's it called? I mean, what's his name? I'm blanking. You know him. Come on, with the mobile recording rigs that you plug your camera into and everything.
Iographer.
Iographer. So and they build these bundles. You tell them what phone you have, and they have a bundle for you that you can go order, and it will come with the headphone jack, dongle, and then you've got your clip-on mic that would just go here, and then there you're set to stream and set to record. So.
So with that, I think the message here that we really want to make sure we drive home is that you can do this inexpensively. Yes, you do need some entry point of equipment, but you do not have to run out and spend thousands of dollars on a camera and thousands of dollars on a microphone. And you're looking at this and going, I'm $5,000 in now and I haven't started a show. Start the show, build the revenue, and then build the equipment as you go.
Yeah. Upgrade as you go. Start, practice, get better. And then, once it's got some legs, then you strengthen those legs, in other words, with equipment and software and, all those good things.
I love it. Okay. While we're wrapping up the end here, I want to give everybody a chance. We are going to do a giveaway today. I've swapped it up on you guys. So I got to pull up the picture. We're going to do #LovePuddles, and you will win Puddles the Duck. If you do not know, Puddles is the name of our awesome little mascot, and we have the new Puddles plush that we will be sending out. So do #LovePuddles. I will put that banner up for you. There you go. And put that in, and we will be using our new giveaway tool today. I'm very excited. If you are not familiar with the giveaway tool, you will see it in use here in a minute. But what you can do is when you're using StreamYard, you can type StreamYard, www.streamyard.com/giveaway, and it will link to your StreamYard account. You can choose which show. You can choose what phrase you want to put into the giveaway tool for that. And it will enter all of the entries into it, and then you'll see the giveaway. It's a random giveaway picker, which we love getting to use. Cherie, make sure that it is all one word. So, or Cherie, I'm not sure if I said that right, which way, but make sure it's one word, #LovePuddles, no space. I want you to be entered. If you are in the Facebook group, make sure that you have clicked the link in the comments to give StreamYard permission to see your name so we can get you entered into the giveaway. And we'll give everybody another minute or so because there's always the wonderful delay of live video while they're entering all that in. What are some final thoughts you have for everybody while we're waiting on that, Erik?
Yeah, let's see. So, and actually what's interesting is, so for example, this that we're doing right now as a giveaway, something to consider as a difference between a podcast and that is, we recorded this, we're done, it then gets finalized and then pushed out to everybody that's just listening. One thing to consider is potentially using your streaming platform as the place where you're creating a live video show first and then edit out some of the stuff that a listener is going to find boring. That
Right.
said, maybe you want to leave it in to encourage people to show up live. So you got to consider which way you're going to go with that, but don't just don't not think about it. Think about both audiences at the same time, in other words, before you go in, as well as during production, as well as post-production.
I like that. And of course, then don't get hung up on the thinking process so long that you don't create either, though.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I've seen that happen where then it's the paralyzation. What do you call that?
Analysis paralysis.
Thank you. I knew that. I knew you'd know it. Yes. Don't get stuck overthinking it and then not move forward either. Eventually, you're going to have to just make a decision. And if you're really stuck on that decision, go consult your peers. Reach out to your community. Take a poll if you have a Facebook group, or ask people you know and trust. They'll help steer you in a direction.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Don't forget about community when it comes.
We are going to pull up the giveaway. All right, guys, we have 24 entries. Ooh, 25. They're rolling in. You better get them in quick. I'm going to hit draw. 1, 2, 3. All right. I need some drum roll music, and I say it every week. I've yet to get the drum roll music. One of these days, I will actually get the drum roll music. I really do say it every time. Yolanda. All right. Congratulations. I am very excited for you. Yolanda, if you have already won the plush, because I think you have, let me know and we can swap that up for a mug or something else for you. But I feel like I've seen your name before. And we don't want to just keep sending you plushes if you've won that already. All right, I'm going to pull that off. Yolanda, you can email us at marketing@streamyard.com and we will get that sent out. Just let us know. And if you, like I said, if you have won the plush, just let us know and we will swap that out for something else for you. With that, everyone, I want to thank you so much for being here for another episode of Livestream Impact. Erik, I want to thank you for your time and for sharing with our awesome audience and everybody your insightful knowledge.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, this was a great episode. I'm going to take some of the tips and tricks you've shared because I've got some things that I can add to my own show, kind of planning and list. So that's one of my favorite things about having the guests on is I feel like I learn at the same time every week. And really that's what we want is we want this to be a place where everybody can come and take those insightful little pieces of wisdom and go away and start applying them to their own process immediately. I will see you guys all next week for another episode of Livestream Impact. In the meantime, this Wednesday, we will have Ask StreamYard. It is at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on all the social channels. We will have StreamYard Spotlight on Thursday evening with Dana and Kelsey. And this Friday is Coffee with the Ducks, where we will be interviewing one of the StreamYard employees. We will see you next time. Bye, everyone.